Family, family, family. So if you come from a Latinx family like I do, you know that we are all super brutally honest. We kind of don't care about hurting people's feelings and just speak our truth. And we're really close because of that. But what happens when you bring money into the picture? How do we manage our own money goals with a family that might need our help and support from time to time? I am Danielle, and this is First Gen Money, a YouTube channel for all things money and lifestyle from a millennial's perspective. If you're interested in building generational wealth, in working towards financial independence, and are also just interested in how to navigate these uncomfortable money conversations with your family, then please be sure to subscribe to my channel so you can get a notification anytime I post a new video. So that's what we're going to explore today. How to set money boundaries with your family, especially if they're a loud Latinx family like mine. Before we get into the how to actually set up money boundaries, let's talk about what money boundaries are. Essentially, money boundaries are rules that you put in place about what you will do and what you won't do. These rules help balance the relationship you have with yourself, the relationship you have with money, and the relationship that you have with your family. If you don't set boundaries, you can grow resentful, destroy your own money future. You could just end up being really angry all the time because you feel like other people are at fault for what's not going right with your money journey or in your life. So, as Brene Brown says, create a pile. What is okay? What is not okay? Set these boundaries. Set these boundaries because they're important for your future relationships, for just your overall happiness. And money boundaries aren't the only kind of boundaries that exist, right? There are emotional boundaries, there are physical boundaries, there are so many different boundaries that you can put in place. So we're just going to be tackling the money part of it, but know that boundaries can exist in every other aspect of your life. All right, let's get into how to set these boundaries. Number one is putting yourself first. That is the hardest thing to tell somebody who comes from a very strong, family-oriented Latinx culture, right? Because we are not just us. It is our family, our extended family. It is everybody, and we're like a community. That's just the culture that we're part of, right? So when you think about put yourself first, it sounds like a very selfish thing to do, but it's quite the opposite, because when you take care of yourself first, you're making sure that you don't become a liability for somebody else. And there is this analogy, I guess is what you call it, that and it gets thrown around when we talk about putting yourself first, which is when you're on an airplane and you have to put on your oxygen mask first before you help somebody else put on their oxygen mask. Because what happens if you start helping somebody else and yours isn't on? I'm sorry, but you're going down. I guess you're going down anyway, but you won't be able to continue to help others. You won't be able to do anything because you didn't take care of yourself first. And it's not a selfish thing. So remember that you're doing it because you don't want to become a responsibility or a burden to somebody else, even if they might not feel like you are, because they'll always say like, no, it's not a burden for me. Even if that's the case, helping yourself and putting yourself first is because you are making sure that you can always be responsible for your own future. And let's be honest, if you are not meeting your money goals or doing whatever you want to do with your life because you feel like you're always giving to others, then you grow resentful, and that causes some long-term damage. That can cause families to not be families anymore. So let's get uncomfortable for the short term so we can make sure that we have healthy relationships in the long term. And yes, that means you need to put yourself first, even when it's hard. Number two is to leave the judgment and set your family up for success. It is important that when we're setting boundaries, it's not about, well, you were so bad with your money, so why is it my fault? No, leave the judgment behind. Okay, yay, you are able to manage your money right. Okay, good for you. You don't need to judge other people for what they haven't yet learned, what they haven't yet been exposed to. So Leave that judgment behind because it doesn't help, it doesn't make things better, it just makes you sound rude. Most of the time, family members aren't going to be proud to come knocking on your door and asking for financial support, right? It is probably an embarrassing thing for people to do, even if like they shouldn't feel embarrassed. Like it's okay, it happens. We're all sometimes in a bad situation because of whatever circumstances that are either, you know, our own decision or just like the world. When you leave that judgment, you're able to give that person an opportunity to feel like they can improve, not an opportunity to feel bad and feel worse about their situation. So use this as an opportunity to educate and really give them some of the knowledge that you've been able to pick up. There's some saying about a fish and teaching the person to fish instead of giving them the fish. Same goes here, right? Like, yes, you could be helping them in the short term, giving them some money, but are you really helping them in the long run? When helping really would have been providing the education that you already have. And, you know, to be honest, sometimes they don't want to hear it. Sometimes they feel they might reject it. And that's okay. That's okay. Don't force anybody to learn something that they don't want to learn. But I think if somebody is willing to do that, then instead of maybe giving just money, give them a little bit of your knowledge in the process. And number 3 is to always take 24 hours before making a decision. I say this about everything, not even just like setting money boundaries. Like it's about anything that you want to buy. Just like give it a second before you make that purchase. But same is true here. You know, if somebody calls you up and says like, hey, Danielle, I need to borrow $1,000, like whatever. Can I have it now? Hey, nice to hear from you. Can I get back to you in like, 12 hours or so? Take a night. Sometimes it might be like a time sensitive thing, but just don't like feel like you need to respond right then and there, right? Say, hey, let me take a second to think about it and I'll call you back. It doesn't need to be something where you're just like saying yes because you were put on the spot. Because sometimes like we all say yes when we're put on the spot. I say yes when I'm put on the spot sometimes without really wanting to do that thing. And so again, that goes to it brings resentment, it makes you upset, it makes you angry at that person. So just make it a rule to take 24 hours to think about it. And during this time, you should think about what we talked about in number 1, right? Like, if you provide this financial support or whatever it is, are you not going to be able to meet some of your goals? Are you okay with not meeting some of those goals? Or are you making a decision based on judgment? Is there an opportunity here for you to not be judgmental and actually provide some kind of information to the person that is asking for your help? Take a second to think about your decision. Okay, moving on to number 4. You need to know what you're okay with. To be honest, everybody is different. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, don't co-sign for a family member. Don't lend a family member money, because there have been times when I've done that, right? I have my own boundaries and my boundaries are going to be different from yours because we're 2 different people. Don't just listen and take somebody from the internet's word by it and say, I'm never going to loan money to family. I'm never going to do this because First Gen Money told me to do so. The truth is, I've been supported through family members giving me their credit, giving me monetary support. I mean, the only reason I was able to go to college is because my abuelita co-signed my first loan for me or with me. She trusted me to be able to pay it back when my parents did not have good credit. She said, I will put my name on that so you can go to college. And that's why I was able to get the loan to attend school, or else who knows what would have happened. But that was a way that I was supported by a family member extending their resources to me. In this case, her credit. And another way was when I was studying abroad, my aunt, she gave me money to get a flight to, I think I might have been stuck in London or something and couldn't go back to Valencia where I was studying abroad. And she was like, here's some money, buy yourself a flight, like go. That's lending me money. That's, you know, those are things that I had access to. So for me to sit here and say like, you can't give your family any money, you know, you shouldn't do that. I know how close we are with our families. We don't want to see our families struggle. Just understand what is okay with you to be able to give out, to be able to financially support in what way, right? I created a family emergency fund, a family fund that I contribute to, and that amount is the amount that I'm okay giving when somebody asks for it. I'm actively saving for it in a sinking fund like I do other goals, but I know if somebody asks for more than that, I'm gonna need 24 hours to think about it. I'm gonna need some time. I also set a money boundary that I do not co-sign for people. I have been asked to be a co-signer by immediate family members that I love, but I just don't want to co-sign because I have worked hard to get myself out of debt. And so being associated to debt that isn't my own, I just don't feel comfortable doing that. And I have made that, well, we'll get into that number 5, but know what you're okay with, understand what your limits are, and once you have that number, create a fund for it, a sinking fund for it. Make it something that you're actively working on and saving towards every month. Number 5 is to share your boundaries with the people that you love, with your family, and to expect them in return. The truth is we can set all these boundaries that we want right now by ourselves, but it's important that we're constantly having conversations about this with our family members, about some of the ways that we're thinking about how we're setting boundaries, because you don't want somebody to ask you one day, oh, I actually need a cosigner for a car that I want to lease, and then you say no because of this boundary that you have, and then the other person thinks that you're saying no because you don't like them or whatever. So continue to talk about the boundaries that you have set. I've made it very clear to my family that I do not co-sign. I rather give you money than put my name on that loan. That's how I am. Everybody, you know, if they listen to me when I speak, know that that's how I feel. So it shouldn't be a surprise when I come back and say, no, I cannot do this for you, because that's how I've been. Now, the second part of this is to expect these boundaries in return. I am not going to go and say, I'm not going to co-sign for you, and then turn around and ask somebody to co-sign for me. I have needed a co-signer in my past to who I am super grateful, but moving forward, I don't want anybody co-signing for me. I don't want to co-sign for people, so I don't expect anybody to want to co-sign for me. Like if you set these boundaries and then you ask people to not have these boundaries for you, I mean, you know, some people might have everybody's going to have different boundaries, and some people might feel more comfortable co-signing or giving money. I just think it's best to expect the same boundaries. If you are creating boundaries for yourself, don't try to get in the way of other people's boundaries that you've created for you. I don't know if that makes sense, but the point is, just don't be a hypocrite. Everybody has different boundaries, so they might be okay doing what you're not okay doing, but you set that boundary for yourself, so make sure that you're respecting it for others. So those are the 5 kind of ways to think about setting boundaries with your family. Oof, money is an uncomfortable thing to talk about. I know I have been super fortunate because I literally talk about money all the time with my family. We're kind of okay having these conversations now, but I've also set boundaries in place. I have time after time, I have shown what I can and will do and what I cannot and will not do. So I've been fortunate, you know, but there's also been those awkward conversations. And, you know, I've definitely had moments where I got upset because somebody didn't respect my boundaries, and I let it get to me. But the truth is, somebody will not understand your boundaries, and they will get upset and think that you know, are whatever you are, but you need to understand that this isn't a selfish thing to do. This is a thing you're doing for the health of that relationship, of that friendship, of what you are trying to build with this member of your life. So if you enjoyed this video, which I hope you did, and you haven't yet, please consider subscribing, liking it, and if you want a community of other Latinas who are talking about money, be sure to join the Latinas Get Money Slack community, where we have these conversations about money, where we can be honest about how we're feeling, what we're thinking, and just get tips from each other. So I will see you all next Wednesday.